NSW, men of Reddit, what are your abnormal vagina stories? On our second date I went down on her. All was well. When I was done I noticed some nasty boils all around. Great, I am going down on someone with herpes? Nope. Turns out she had a nasty seafood allergy. We're actually married now and have a good laugh about this. That's why you don't go base to mouth. Not the vagina but the clitoris. I met this girl at a party in college and I ended up back at her dorm. One thing leads to another and I head downtown on her. I get down there and find a clit that looked like a thumb. I call it a clunt. It would have been fine if I could have chosen to continue or not, but as soon as my lips touched her downstairs lips, she wrapped her legs around my head like a boa. I had to eat my way to freedom. Not the worst experience. Been reading all these for a good half hour. I had to eat my way to freedom was the only time I burst out laughing. One night stand. Her vagina looked normal from the outside, but her pelvic bone had some kind of odd rounding, so when I stuck my dong and doggy style, no issue. When she rode me reverse cowgirl, it like hooked onto my dong and straight up hurt. So, she boned you. This girl I was seeing had a really low cervix, short vagina, if that's a thing. Sex was fine, but 20% of the time I was hitting a weird soft wall. I have a great story about this. Met this girl at a bar and went back to her place. It was after she worked a double at a restaurant. This is important to the story. Things got hot and heavy and clothes started coming off. It was a normal hookup and then came off the underwear. All of a sudden the room filled with the thickest, muskiest stench. It was so pungent that it was like you could cut it with a knife. I remembered back to when this girl said she had just gotten off a double. I worked in the industry so I get sweating. Powered through the stench and went home after. She was a cool girl who I wanted to see again, so in the next few days we made a proper hookup date and I went over to her place, but this time she hadn't worked so thought we were all good. Things got hot and heavy and everything was normal up until the underwear came off. Same thing happened. Room filled up with the muskiest stench. It was kind of choking, it was so bad. I'm a pretty comfortable guy to be around and I'll say anything, so I said to her, "Hey, I don't want to be rude but I really think you have something going on and you should get that checked out." She admitted that she smelled it too and told that she would get a doctor's. At the next day, powered through again and then left. Next day she goes to the doctor and I get a call from her. Turns out like a month ago she was drunk and put a tampon in, not realizing she already had one in. She was starting to suffer from TSS. She told me had I not said anything she probably would have ignored it some more. And that was the day I found out I saved a girl's life by telling her that her vag stunk. TLDR. Told a hookup about her pungent aroma. Turned out to be an old tampon. Saved her from worse TSS. Perhaps a lifesaver. How do you not know there is a leftover tampy in your vagina? I'll never understand. Probably more psychological than anything to do with her actual vagina. But she wouldn't let me go down on her because she said it tickled too much. She was a virgin and wanted to keep it that way for religious reasons. So we were experimenting with oral, which she'd also never tried. Every time I tried to touch or lick her she burst into laughter and pulled away from my face. Her stomach, breasts, neck, legs were all fine. Just her vagina was ticklish. Just her vagina was ticklish. This might be the funniest thing on this thread. I have no idea how she did it, but a FWB years ago could, like, eject what I left in there, like Hawk. PTOO, someone explain this madness. It was probably the most insanely funny moment I've ever witnessed in my life. She could also fist comfortably, if she relaxed, but then could flex enough to claim to feel my heartbeat through my penis. Once dated a girl and went down on her after while pretty drunk after the second or third date. I remember going down on her and it smelling different. Went down on her the next date while not drunk and immediately realized I made a mistake. I wish I could say that I powered through, but the smell was unbearable. I lightly gagged, quietly collected myself, and kind of kissed my way back up in what must have seemed like a fake out to her, but it went unquestioned. and we had some stale sex while I pondered just what I was going to do with this one. After remembering reading a couple of threads about similar experiences and it ending up being BV, I decided to be a gentleman, and the next day I gently told her there was something going on downstairs that needed her attention, or the attention of a medical professional. While I'm sure she was mortified, she thanked me for my candor and concern and said she would make an appointment with her gynecologist. She went on a round of antibiotics and we went on a few more dates. After her antibiotics were through, I tried again. Still heinous. This time I powered through, gagged a few times, and broke up with her a week later. I tried. If I've learned anything from this thread, she had a tampon in her. I met this girl off of Tinder. We go out for dinner, then back to my place. One thing led to another and she on my bed and I go down her. As I'm fingering her I feel something odd in there. Not wanting to be rude, I assumed it was a diaphragm, female condom or some other lady product I don't know about. A minute goes by and I feel something wet, and not good wet, so I accidentally pull it out. It was a used freaking condom. Night ended right there. Never have had a more intense mood swing in my life. The real question is whether that was her second dinner of the night too. When I was in the army I dated this girl whose vagina sucked. I don't mean it was terrible, I mean it literally sucked. I was going down on her and as she was coming from it her vagina inhaled and tugged at my bottom lip enough I felt it. It startled me and I pulled back a bit. She didn't notice, but I sure did. I'll never forget that. Not really a personal abnormal vagina story, but funny nonetheless. My wife never really watched pee and never experimented with women. She'd never seen a vagina other than her own, until she got the book of one of the former Playboy bunnies and Hugh Hefner's girlfriend, which contained some risque photos of said former playmate, to which she came up to me, pointed at the vagina, and loudly exclaimed, "What is that?" I then had to explain to her that vaginas varied pretty wildly in their physical appearance, inner labia lengths, clitoris size, etc. She was genuinely shocked and surprised. She was 24 at the time. She saw her first vagina that wasn't her own at 24. Still shocks me. A year or so ago I met this girl off Tinder and we hit it off straight away. Went from exchanging pleasantries to smucked chat in less than 5 minutes. She lived nearby and wanted a FWB so I obliged. I drove over to her house and she was a little bigger than her photos indicated but I didn't mind. She was cute and frisky. Anyway, we get down to business and I started fingering her. She was super aroused. I inserted one finger, then two, then three and she was happy. Then she grabbed the back of my neck and stared me in the eye and said, in an aggressive tone, "I want your whole hand in me." Okay. 4 fingers. Then the thumb and suddenly her snatch just gobbled my hand up like I was feeding a horse an apple. I've never fisted anyone before so I thought it was pretty neat, punching her cervix like that. So did she. We saw each other a couple of times and crap always got weird. Feeding a horse an apple bro, I laughed out loud. I once dated a girl that dried up faster than the hottest day in the Sahara Desert. No matter how much lube we put on, she was dry in a minute. Dry in 60 seconds is what I call her. Might have been the pill. It does weird things like that and many women never realize. Dated a girl that had 2 of them, side by side. She filled me in before our first time, explained she only used one of them and she'd have to help guide me in for a landing, so to speak. I honestly thought she was just bullshitting me until the first time I had to grab her a tampon and she reminded me she needed 2, and she used both of them. You'd never have known there was anything different about her. She was absolutely gorgeous and looked perfectly normal. It just smelled really bad. Like the stereotypical slightly rotten fish smell mixed with the smell from when you don't take out the garbage for a week. That bad. Finally, my username is relevant. I've got a few. The first isn't so much a weird vagina, but a cleanliness issue. I was hanging out with a girl after our 3rd or so date when, after making out for a while, she said she had to go to the bathroom to freshen up. After a few minutes she came back. We made out some more and I made the move to go down on her. The pants come off. I go down. I'm loving it. Until I noticed a distinct poo smell. Like a very strong poo smell. I try to ignore it but I can only breathe through my nose. My roommates come home and I get up because my door is open. As I go back to her I look down and holy crap. The shart stain in her underwear is like a Hershey's kiss. I couldn't continue going down on her. The second story is more of a weird vagina one. I'm dating this girl and we decided to be adventurous. So we go out to the local steeplechase. It's nighttime. The steeplechase is basically a huge track with a huge field in the middle. We go out to what we assumed was the center of the track. We get comfortable, looking at stars. We start making out. It's great. It's heavy. We skip the whole oral sex thing and go straight to ripping our clothes off. I climb on top of her legs up. I slide. I'm sliding everywhere. I cannot for the life of me find the entrance. I've had sex before. I know how this works, but for the life of me, where is her vagina? It turns out that not only did she have a tiny vagina with almost zero labia, it was way farther back than what I guess I was used to. Maybe her hip pointed out farther than most. Anyway, we eventually banged. It was fantastic. Wild and free in the middle of a field. Later that night we went home together to bang some more and I finally see her in a lit room. Yup, she's just got a far back, very tiny vagina. I'm honestly surprised anything could fit in it, which made me wonder about myself. But, as it turns out, vaginas are weirdly accommodating to large objects. Not myself, but the dildos she showed me later made my mind explode. So, abnormally small vaginas and stinky vaginas. If you have one, love it for what it is. Wild and free in the middle of a field. In an open field, Ned. One time I was so excited to be fricking my long distance boyfriend that I was too wet. That had never happened before, so I go to his bathroom and try to dry up my vagina. I took a clean washcloth and tried to make it a small dong shape to shove up there and sop up my extra excitement. I guess it's the closet thing to a guy coming embarrassingly early for a woman. Yes, sorry, I made a sticky mess so quickly. I was just really excited and it felt really good. He said it was very flattering. Couple of, I dunno, abnormal seems like a harsh word, but interesting stories. One girl I was with was an insane squirter. Just off the charts. I touched her clit for no lie, less than 5 seconds, and she just pushes me away and loudly says get some towels. I was wearing a Fitbit at the time, and took it off after a minute because it's splash proof, but not freaking waterproof. Another woman, little older, just had a vice for a pee. If she went full bore, it freaking actually hurt. I asked her how and she said decades of horseback riding. God, that was a fun night. Finally, one woman had an goddamn oven between her legs. I know the vagina is usually the warmest part of a woman's body. My wife has pleasant warmth. This lady put my dong in her and instantly recoiled. Like, are you okay? Does this fever require hospitalization? Got used to it after a bit, but very unusual. I call it light bulb vagina. I've discussed this with other male friends who've confirmed they've experienced it too. Essentially, you get several inches of regular vaginal canal, then it sorta opens up towards the back, like a cavern. If you have any kind of length to your wang, you'll go from nice caressed feeling for the first 3-5 inches, only to feel the tip of your penis suddenly discover a hidden, spacious tomb. I imagine the cross section of this would look like a light bulb, hence the name I gave it. Technically not my story to tell, but it is in regards to my own pee and I don't know if this guy has Reddit to share, so I'll be a good sport. A couple years ago I was having issues with my bladder. Not incontinence or anything, but I constantly felt like I had UT. Countless tests and the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong, so they just put me on painkillers and called it a day. These pills had a warning about dying mucous membranes if taken long term. Anyways, I hook up with this guy and everything was average. Not mind blowing but pretty satisfactory. Nice guy. I came. He came. Bob's your uncle. He asks me to stay over but I decline and head home because I like my own bed. Early the next morning he texts me saying he had a great time and we should hook up again. I agree and think that's that. After what I can only imagine is a painstaking few minutes for him, I finally get seriously, you were mad fun and I don't want to offend you, but why is everything orange? I was confused and asked what he meant and apparently his sheets, his hands, his dong, even though we used condoms, were all stained orange. It took me a minute, but then I realized it was my meds. I explained. He was cool about it. We laughed. I offered to buy him new sheets. He declined. We fricked a few more times, but I always brought my own blankets to lay down. Wife going through exactly this right now, except it is blue, like Smurf blue. I dated this girl for a while and time to make with the sex rolled around. I love to go down on a woman, so that was the first thing I did to her. One of her lips down there was long. I mean like 3-4 inches long. The other one was normal sized, but when I got the long one in my mouth I honestly thought something had fallen into the bed and gotten between her legs. I stopped and did a little investigating, and when I looked up at her she was crying. I asked her what was wrong and she said she had been stressing so bad about me seeing her long lip and freaking out or making fun of her. I immediately assured her that all was well and that if she was into it I would like to continue where I left off. This cheered her up and she indicated agreement. So I went back to work on her and we had a wonderful night. I miss her. She tasted like white chocolate covered mango. Definitely the most amazing tasting girl I have ever been with. What a wonderful story. Truly a diamond in the muff. Met a girl I really liked and I was sure we would end up in a relationship. After a few dates we had sex and I felt nothing. It was a strange sensation and I just brushed it off. First time with her and everything. Well, it happened again and again and again. I saw how my dong penetrated her, but it felt like fricking a space void of pleasure. I'm not saying that she was loose or anything. In fact, we always needed lube and some time to get going. I've been with quite a few women before and after, but I've never encountered a situation like with her. It sucked because she knew that it was only because of the sex when I broke up with her and wanted me to explain what the problem was. That ain't something you wanna hear. Last weekend, I had a Tinder hang with a woman from Paris, though originally from Africa. 99% sure she was a victim of FGM. Was too afraid to ask. My womanhood just retracted even further into my body than it already is. I sincerely hope that, if that is the case, she was okay emotionally. I haven't gone through it myself, but I can imagine it's horrible. I was flirting with this one girl from work. We decided to go out and shoot pool. Things go well and we head back to her place. Things go even better and we're taking our clothes off. Before she gets fully naked she says her clit is bigger than average. I don't care. She gets undressed and holy crap, it's like a mini sausage or some crap. I cracked a joke if she was flaccid or hard. She laughed. We fricked. End of story. When I was in high school, I dated Cindy who was pretty hypersexual. It ended up being a large part of why I broke up with her. We'd be on the phone chatting about school and our friends, and she'd bust out with, "Guess how many fingers I have in my pee?" It was always 4. So later on in our 20s we reconnected. She was at my house hanging out, and my roommate came home from some convention or another. He had gotten a red rubber bouncy ball, about baseball size, that lit up and flashed when you bounced it. I looked at Cindy and started to say, "You know, I bet you could." She had already started unzipping her jeans and said, "Only if you put it in." So, Rumi standing there, she dropped her pants and parted her legs. I smacked the ball to get it flashing, and slid it right in with zero effort. Her lips closed around the ball and bulged a little. It lit up from the inside and looked like an ambulance had just pulled up to tend to some kind of vulvar emergency. When it stopped flashing, she just kinda pooped it out. I was grinning, and my buddy just stood there slack-jawed. Finally he muttered, "You have a really nice pee. Thank you for that," and walked away. I'm dying over here, good God. It was always 4. This goes back to my freshman year of high school, the day I lost my virginity. This was the first girl that had ever touched my junk or that I was physical with beyond kissing. I was 14, she was 16. She was dog sitting someone's house, so that was where the deep would be done. I pulled down her pants to reveal a 100% never trimmed bush. Since we were still experimenting, I wanted to try going down on her. As I got closer the smell was definitely throwing me off, and as soon as my tongue touched her lips I started gagging. I did it for all of 6 seconds before I decided I couldn't do it. Slipped on a condom, came in seconds, and that was the day I lost my virginity. But man, oh man, that was a terrible first experience at eating pee. 100% never trimmed bush. Came in seconds. Your first time was fast and furious. As a female, I'm now super self-conscious about what guys might have thought about my vagina. I dated a girl for a while and she had the tightest and driest vagina ever. Sex was painful. Lube didn't help. It was like a really thick pancake and that no matter how much syrup you put on it, it would just suck it up and be dry. Probably medication. Accutane, for example, works by drying out mucosal membranes. Turns out it has side effects. Source: dated a gal who was lovely but had to literally stick petroleum jelly up her nose with a Q-tip to not get bloody noses due to meds. There was a girl I dated that when she orgasmed during oral sex she became so acidic that it was like touching your tongue to a 9-volt battery. It was pretty awesome. Spicy. Dated a girl for a few weeks and the first time we had sex she got incredibly wet. Now, I understand this happens and it really was a turn on, but I had her bent over doggy with me standing on the edge of her bed. All of her wetness was running down my legs in a river. By the end there was a big puddle on her carpet I could just hear my feet sloshing around in. I was like, Jesus Christ. Are you okay? Can I get you a Gatorade? I laughed when you said, can I get you a Gatorade? Was dating a girl, now married, and would go to town on her clit, making her squirt and gush like crazy. I played with her and we had sex. My phone worked its way under her butt. It was dead. Case was full of fluid. Thankfully I had insurance on it and got a new one. Claimed liquid damage and said I knocked it in the sink while doing dishes. I have a friend that used to work in electronics insurance claims who says I should have told the truth. My claim would have been the talk of the claim center. I have a friend that used to work in electronics insurance claims who says I should have told the truth. My claim would have been the talk of the claim center. Unless they consider that hazardous material might mess with your claim. I hooked up with a girl I went to high school with about 10 years after we graduated. What surprised me was just how little there was to her vagina. It was just a slit, like a closed eye between her legs. I had to spread it a bit to see any labia. And her vagina was so small and had so little extra skin that her lips spread during sex and I could see her clitoris. It still works its way into my mind. It was so different from what I've been with before, and since that it just randomly creeps into my thoughts. I'll be at work, working on some Excel sheet, and suddenly the thought, oh yeah, her vagina was so much different than any other girls I've ever been with. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.